like Nate Dogg. You know it's a hit when he spit.
Smoke your name or smoking what you do.
It's not the same old anymore. It's something fresh and something new.
People in general, they hate rich kids.
Let's get unfiltered.
Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm Carl Reed.
And I'm Smoke Dixon.
In today's episode, we will have Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lea joins the show. Big time win in week 1 over Virginia Tech. He'll join us later on and discuss more Vanderbilt. Our games of the week and keys to victory: Texas at Michigan, Colorado at Nebraska. We picked these 2 games. Smoke. Big ones on tap. Don't forget about Vandy. Anchor down. What a great week 1 win by Vanderbilt over Virginia Tech. Head coach Clark Lea had his team ready to play. Smoke. Before he joins the show shortly, let's give a brief overview of Coach Clark Lea's history. One of the great defensive minds in college football, former Vandy fullback from 02 to 04, linebacker coach at Bowling Green, Syracuse, Wake Forest, and Notre Dame. Notre Dame defensive coordinator 2018 to 2020, hired as Vanderbilt's head coach in 2021. We want to welcome head coach Clark Lea to the show. Welcome, Coach.
Great to be with you guys.
Thank you. Coach, what was your message to your team throughout the summer and the week leading up to the Virginia Tech game?
Well, I mean, we spent a lot of time just on who we are and our identity. I think building connection. You know, we had a lot of new team members and new staff members, so we knew that it was important that we gel really quickly if we were going to have it on our first game. And for us, that first game was a big one. We knew we wanted to try to make a statement. You know, it's interesting. You can see the progress and you can measure the progress through the winter and the spring and the summer, obviously. So we knew we had a good team that was going to be tested. My message to them centered around 3 things, and that was first, discipline. You know, do we have the discipline day in, day out, on the field, off the field, to get us to that game 1 and through the season being the team that we know we can be? Do we have the respect for each other, respect for process, respect for the game, and respect for our coaches on the field, again, to deliver that level of team? And then finally, the spirit. You know, are we bringing the spirit, the energy every day? And that was kind of our consistent message through fall camp, and the guys responded to it. And obviously, we were able to find a way to win on Saturday.
Now, Coach Lea, back when we both got to Vanderbilt at the same time, you hired me. And I sat down in front of you and we shared a few words about when you returned that kickoff against Bama when we both were playing. And then we sat down and we talked about getting big-time wins at Vanderbilt. We both shared the same vision. Got that big-time win last week. Now, how do you reset your team against Alcorn State to come back, knowing that they want to come in and do the same thing that you did to Virginia Tech?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, you know, look, it's all relative. And I told the team after the game, we were margins away from having a different conversation altogether. So we have to recognize how thin those margins are for us. We can celebrate a win, but we also need to be able to turn the page pretty quickly and focus on the next opponent. I think one of the secrets to a successful season is that we're really focused on us. We want to make sure that we're growing as a team and we're improving as a team. And there were plenty of opportunities in that Virginia Tech game for us to play better. So that was a starting point for our conversation. But I think more than that, you know, we're in a unique moment where there are a lot of people paying attention to what we're doing. And so my message to the team on Tuesday was that we need to seize that. You know, we want to thrive in that spotlight. In this day and age in college football, you have to fight for a part of the conversation, and so I want us to get accustomed to being a part of that conversation. I want us to enjoy that, and then also have the discipline to be focused on the prep required to beat a team like Alcorn State that is going to come in here with a mission to pull off a big win, and they have the team to do it. So we have to, again, be able to zero in on the plan and the level of execution it's going to take for us to represent our team and play a little bit better than we did a week ago.
Now, being a part of that original 2021 mob squad that you hired. You've now retooled your staff with a new offense coordinator. You're now running a defense. Hiring that new staff, what have you learned that you needed to do to hire the right people at Vanderbilt to get this thing going in the right direction that you see within your visions?
Yeah, Smoke. I think there were so many good parts of that original staff too, and so change is a good thing, and obviously it's put us on a little different path than we were a year ago. But that's not to say that our early iterations were bad. We've had to evolve. I think one of the things I focused on coming out of the 23 season was just really scrutinizing how we're training our team, and wanting in this league, you have to be physical. You have to be able to play longer, harder than your opponent. We were taking on too many injuries, and we weren't, physically developing at a rate that was allowing us to close the gap with our peers. And so that was an important part of our evolution forward. And then it was about scrutinizing kind of the tactical systems that we were using on both sides of the ball. I think the progress we made from year 1 to year 2, where we went from 2-10, and really, Smoke, you were on that team. I mean, we earned that 2-10, and that was probably about what we were capable of. We had a lot of good people rolling their sleeves up, going to work, but there was a lot of scar tissue we had to break through that year. We were also really taking the approach that now seems a little dated, where we weren't trying to turn over the whole roster. We were really trying to develop what we inherited and get it pointed and aligned in a direction for good. So from that first year, where I felt like we really struggled, we went to the year 2, and we were able to rip off 5 wins, a couple of them late in conference, and be able to play for bowl eligibility in the last game. And that progress, the results, kind of spoke to me in a way that I felt like doubling down on the systems and the process that we had taken to that point was going to deliver the program forward. And I just missed a couple of things that were kind of covered by those results, to say we really needed to reimagine what Vanderbilt offense looked like, and we needed to reimagine what Vanderbilt defense looked like. And fortunately, I was able to hire Tim Beck, who brings a wealth of experience, and I think is better positioning us to play the style of game we need to play to win, which is a game control drives, finish with touchdowns, limit exposures to the defense. It's really complementary football on defense. My experience over the years has allowed me to understand the need to spread the hard down around, and to change kind of where you're allowing for space, down in, down out. And that's probably been the most fun I've had in these changes, in this transition, is getting back in front of the guys as a teacher and sharing my passion for what we're doing. And I think they've responded well to it. And again, I celebrate Team 1 and Team 2 and Team 3 for all that we were. It was imperfect. And shoot, Team 4 is imperfect too, man. We're right now we're feeling good, but inevitably we're going to face adversity this year. We're well equipped to handle that. My goal for this team is that we just keep improving forward, and if we can do that, I think we're going to be pleased with the year.
Coach, how important is your relationship with and having trust in your general manager and giving him a say-so on roster building decisions?
Well, it's critically important, and obviously Smoke's been a part of that operation here, and understands the level of trust we have. But Barton, he and I go way back. We're dear friends. He gives me kind of a big picture thinker that can, one of the things that is inevitable in college football is that coaches will come and go. Assistant coaches will be here, and you hope that they invest a couple years and leave the program better than they found it. But I'm in service of my team, and I'm also in service of my staff, which means I need to help them promote in their careers. Sometimes that means they're taking a job to expand their network. All those things are good, so long as they're invested in what we're doing. But what I know happens with Barton is he ultimately has the final say on on our roster, the direction we go. Obviously, he gives coaches autonomy, but to have his vision executed, and he and I are in lockstep, it keeps us from a coach making a decision that's emotional or making a decision that maybe suits him but doesn't suit us. It keeps us from being exposed to any of that. That we've got the trajectory set on what the 10-year picture is going to look like, and Barton oversees that and is responsible for it. And without a trust there, it'd be really hard, obviously, day in, day out to do my job if I was also focused on that. At this point in college football, player acquisition, player evaluation, player acquisition, and player retention, I mean, that's like 90% of the game. So it's a critical role, and I got a great guy doing it.
Now, we all understand the money business, the business part of college football is coming down to the NIL. How is Vanderbilt football managing the NIL landscape?
Yeah, so we've been behind in this, and it's cost us. And I made mention of that at the SEC Media Days this summer. I mean, I think we've been slow to evolve, and I take responsibility for that. I mean, I think I didn't quite see around the corner on the NIL deal, and it's also something I celebrate. So it's not a matter of not wanting to participate. Obviously, we want to support our players, and we want there to be we want this to be the best program with no exceptions. We're not asking them to come and work for free when they can go elsewhere and earn off NIL. We want to do that really well. So the reality of Vanderbilt is, there aren't those systems already established that support a roster in that way. And, some of our peers have a probably easier time, aligning those resources. We've had to work really hard to get that generated. And I credit Candace for her willingness to roll her sleeves up and go to work. Obviously, me and my staff have put attention to it too. And I'm proud to say that in really a year's time, we positioned ourselves to evolve faster. And I think, from this year to next, I hope that starts looking like the same resources our peers have. But that's going to be important for us to sustain any kind of success that we're able to generate. That may be the most important factor moving forward. And, we can do the transactional piece really well and maintain our identity and maintain our culture and our environment. Those are my choices. But, without that transactional piece, at this level of football, you're not going to be able to be competitive.
Coach, we're going to go into our true and false segment. Smoke and I are going to ask you a series of questions, and you're going to tell us whether it's true or false, and then add some context to it to why you went with that answer. All right, Coach? I'm going to go first with you. True or false? You taught Barton Simmons everything he knows about how to evaluate talent.
Well, that's true. I mean, that has to be true. I mean, ultimately, Barton was really more of I think he was a pretty face on camera, and I had to bring him along in his substantive journey as an evaluator. Obviously, I'm just kidding. Barton's super smart. I will say this. One of the cool things for me is here's one of my best friends in the world who we go way back. And once we got, how it is with your friends, childhood friends, a lot of times you kind of just grow apart. Well, we're both a little nerdy when it comes to the evaluation thing. We're both, kind of are obsessed with football. And so early in my career, we would spend hours on the phone talking about, hey, what are you seeing? What about this? It got to the point where every year around the NFL draft, we would have 2 or 3 conversations about evaluation cycles and what is it about evaluation services that we need to be paying attention to, and how are they able to evaluate longer than a college coach so that they can be more accurate than sometimes we can be with respect to draft numbers. Those conversations set the course for everything that we're attempting to do here at Vanderbilt. So I gotta give him some credit. He's pretty good.
Coach, here we go. True or false? You will always have a fullback on your roster.
True. It's the most dynamic position in football, and I look at that face, huh? That's a true fullback right there. The only thing missing in that one is a cowboy collar, which I'm sure I had at some point. But yeah, we'll always play with fullback. There's no better play than power pass. The flat's always open. It's just a matter of the quarterback wants to let the dog eat.
Coach, true or false? Beating Virginia Tech is only the beginning of something special that's taking place at Vanderbilt.
True, because there's a lot of those celebrations ahead of us, and I know that, and we're going to have more this season. I would say false in this sentiment. The beginning of this thing, and Smoke was there for it. I mean, it didn't always look and feel special. Sometimes I think the most challenging jobs are the most rewarding, and in those moments where you're rolling your sleeves up, and again, Smoke was right there by my side. We were battling, some big challenges there, year 1, year 2, year 3. But the vision has always been there. And so I think all that I've learned and all that I've evolved into as I go, the program goes. And so I've got a team and a staff of guys that are committed to the mission. Our mission's winning. Virginia Tech being game 1 was a great start, but here's to much more of that ahead.
True or false, Coach? You are the best dressed head coach in the SEC.
Well, I got to go true there, right? Smoke, because I wouldn't be true to what you and I both know if I didn't say true. I do my best. I don't have a great face for the camera, but I can control what I can control. And fortunately, I have some good people that get me set up. But I'm a traditional tie guy. That's a little loud. The orange there is a little loud for me, but I try to do the best I can to represent the respect I have for the position and the way I dress.
Coach, this is our shine the light on question. And every coach that comes on here, we ask them, who are some young guys? They could be on the field coaches, analysts, or they could be off the field, support staff stuff that we don't know about yet, but they're doing a really good job and we will know. Well,
I could name out our entire, support staff and our, I have a ton of respect for the guys we have on this, now that everyone can coach, right? That's such a huge advantage. I'd be remiss not to point out Jay Rich, so Jamal Richardson, who I promoted to corners coach this year. I think he's a real up and comer. He's a dynamic coach, teacher. I think he does a great job building relationships and recruiting. I think the sky's the limit for him, and I just want to hang on to him as long as I can because I think he's super talented. And then, the other guy I want to shine a little light on is Kendall Lawson. He's a guy that really works in the shadows in our program, in the scouting area, and for a couple of years now has really changed the way we've recruited. And he does a great job in the identification of players, but he also works really hard in the building of relationships. And the number of our top end players right now that some way, somehow were connected to Kendall, whether it be in evaluation or in the recruiting process, he's another guy that I got a ton of respect for. Kendall's start was, he was here. He was I don't know what his title was or role was, but he was here when I got here, and I think he was working in a closet somewhere. And we kept him on, and he just has taken advantage of every opportunity. So those are two names that jump out at me. I got a ton of young, talented people here that, again, I think are going to be big names as we move along.
Coach, we want to thank you for coming on the show today. We know you're busy. It's the middle of football season. We wish you much success this season.
Well, listen, it's a blast to be with you. And if Smoke Dixon's going to ask me to be on, I'm showing up. So appreciate you guys and all you do for our game. And again, thanks for having me on.
You can check us out now. Listen to us on Apple and Spotify and on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. You can click that QR code and it'll take you right to where you need to like, share, and subscribe. Smoke, we got some big-time matchups here in college football. The first one we have up, Texas at Michigan. The Michigan Wolverines, number 10 in the country. Texas, number 3. Second ever meeting between these schools. Texas won 38-37 in the 2004 Rose Bowl. Both teams reached the 2023 college football playoffs. Michigan won the title. Texas lost in the semis. Michigan, 1,005 all-time wins, Smoke. Most in college football. They both got big wins. Week 1, Smoke. Texas and Michigan.
Well, you know what, Reed? typically I'll jump off the roof first and straight into that pool by myself, and you wouldn't even come in with me. But today, we're going to start with a player, key, that's going to help this team win. It's an offensive lineman. So I'm going to give you the honor of going ahead and starting it off.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, the best player in this football game is Texas offensive tackle Kelvin Banks. This guy is prime time. Pass blocking, run blocking. Look at him seal the edge right there on a dynamic cut block. He is a guy that's going to be a top 5 draft pick in the NFL. You see him down blocking right there on the gap run scheme, opening up the hole for the back. He's in a zone pass protection right here. This guy is the total package. He has great feet, Smoke. He extends his hand great. He has a great punch, great feel of the game, has started every game since he is a true freshman. This is going to be the most impactful player in the game when you look at the battle of the trenches with the Texas offensive line led by Kelvin Banks. This guy is big time. He is the best player on the field. It's going to be a ton of NFL scouts for Saturday, but they all are going to be locked in on Kelvin Banks.
Well, Reed, you know how to start a good offense. You got to keep your quarterback up. You got to keep your run game going. You got to keep the pass game going by what? Your left tackle, blind side, nobody touching, Quinn Ewers. But on the other side, Reed, there's a guy that's ready to hunt. Mason Graham, defensive tackle, number 55. When you look at this guy, you see the ability in a short area to explode through the blocker, punch, lockout. You see his agility, find the ball, tackle right there. He has the ability to win in the run game by being stout. When I mean stout, you can put 2 people on him, you're not going to move him. But in the pass game, coach, he has the ability to get up the field, disrupt, and get in your quarterback's face. If Mason shows up and he's ready to go to work, and your guy standing right there, it's going to be a matchup of the Titans.
Clash of it for real. Now let's talk about coaching matchups, Smoke. When we started dissecting this game and kind of going through what was going to make the difference, we said Michigan offensive line, Texas defensive line. Michigan has been dominant. Michigan O-line coach Grant Newsome, it takes over the spot vacated by Sharon Moore's elevation to the head coaching position. We do know Sharon is still going to have his hands involved in the offensive line game, but Grant Newsome is taking over. Can the University of Michigan come off and run the ball, Smoke, the way that they have in their power scheme and their gap scheme, and can they protect the passer against this defensive line from the University of Texas? Michigan, we saw them all down the stretch last year. Me and you watched tons of Michigan games every week. Lots of film. They were able to move men off their spots at the line of scrimmage. Does Michigan have the ability to do that to Texas? Tell me what you think of the Texas defensive line.
Texas defensive line, SEC defensive line. When I mean that, they got them by the bunches. They got them at the edge, in the middle, outside again. They doubling up, tripling up. They bring it to you in waves. And then you got to look at their defensive line coach, Kenny Baker. I remember going to Lakeside High School back in 2009, 2010, and meeting him when he was a defensive coordinator when I was recruiting South Georgia for the Citadel. We clinicked together. We also worked together in the SoCon, not knowing that I'll be sitting here talking about him being one of the dynamic defensive line coaches in our game. And when you watch it, you see NFL. You see him teaching his guys how to take on blocks, take on duo blocks, sit there, stool, throw that hip, knock off the guy that's trying to get to the second level. But you know when he really goes to work? Getting those guys to get to the quarterback in tandems. What I mean by that is running TE games. One of the few defensive line coaches that teaches the art of running pass rush game to a science. Ear holding guys legally, chipping guys legally, but you see numerous of times his guys are coming scot-free because he's calling the right game pertaining to either the protection side where they're sliding to or the man side where they're manning up. He does a great job of breaking down the protection of the opposite offense.
Now, Smoke, you and I, the other day, we were looking through a couple of the recruits that were committed to these schools that could impact this game in the future. Talk to us about the 2 kids you picked out for this.
Coach, when you look at it, we're going to start off with the commit, Jonah Williams. Coach, I got on the phone last Friday, and I spoke to Pep Hamilton. His son, Jackson Hamilton, plays for Manville High School down in Texas. Now, Jonah is at Galveston Ball. As soon as he said that, he said, man, I said, listen, Coach, stop talking. You saw one of the freakish athletes that you're going to see. 6'3 and a half, 205, running 22.5 in the 200. Baseball player. But on the football field, coach, you don't know what he's going to play. You see him back there lined up, free safety, post safety, but he has the ability to grow into a defensive lineman or even a linebacker. Comp is Isaiah Simmons. I don't know if I've seen anything like this in a long time, but when he gets to Texas, yeah, there's going to be a difference.
Who are you looking at on the Michigan side of the ball?
Okay, Noah Winston. Now, I'm not going to be a homer and say this guy is one of my guys from the DMV because he's at Gonzaga High School, coached by Randy Travers. Powerhouse program. When you cut the tape on, this is a safety, instinctive, explosive, 21.5, 200. Now, he's a slightly bit undersized. He's 5'10", 5'11", 185. But his ability when he takes on blockers, coach, he sends them back. And you see that short area burst when he breaks on balls. You see his ability to start out in the middle of the field and play post safety and go get interceptions because he has ball skills. So ball skills, instinct, and physical. Lamar Morgan is going to love this kid when he shows up on campus for Michigan.
Let's go to our second matchup of the week. We have the University of Colorado against the University of Nebraska. Smoke. This is a game that has a lot of interest. People will be tuned in. This is going to be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The 73rd meeting. Nebraska leads the series 49-21. Colorado is seeking 4 straight wins, though, in the series for the first time. Nebraska seeking their first 2-0 start since 2016, where they started 7-0. Smoke. We got to talk about who are the key players.
This is a family business right here, Reed. The Sanders family. And I'm going to let you touch on the other family. But I'm going to touch on the Sanders family because I think you touch on it too much. The key to victory right here, Shedeur Sanders. When you look at Shedeur last week, and we talked about it, you saw a quarterback that was in complete control of the game. Everybody else was playing in fast forward, and he was playing at his speed. Whatever speed that was, at the right speed. Accurate passer. Being able to challenge the defense down the field. You see him spin out of here, go to his left, open his hip up, sit there, wait, pause for a second. That's what we say. Put one right on the dime, right on his face mask to score. Zone read right here, RPO, let it rip. To number 1 target, number 12. So we're going to see a lot of that all day long. You got 12 games last year, 70% passer, 282 yards. Now, when you look at it, the most important thing is 31 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That tells me great decision maker, understands the importance of the red zone because he's only threw 1 last year in the red zone. Decision making, red zone production, pace of the game, he controls it. The best 2 players on the field, Shedeur Sanders shows up and plays the way that he's always played. Yeah, this one can get ugly quick.
Well, when we talk about a family affair, and you said this is a family matter, well, let's talk about Nebraska's family of football, the Raiola family. They got Dylan Raiola, the number 1 quarterback in the nation in our 24/7 rankings a year ago, who has been everybody's All-American for a long time. Everybody in the country wanted this kid. Week 1, 70% passing, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions against UTEP. Now, I'm going to tell you, a lot of Cornhuskers have been hitting me this week. And there's tons of guys that played in Nebraska that are from St. Louis. There's tons of guys. I'm not going to name them on our show, but it's tons of them. And they have been telling me that this kid has the goods and that he's going to be the difference. If he gets protected, they're saying he has the potential to turn this into a 7-on-7 game. He can make every throw. Everybody in Cornhusker Nation is very excited about this kid.
Reed, wipe your glasses off and go back to what we were doing yesterday when we sat down and watched him play against UTEP. You did not want to come away and say, man, he got the goods. But you whispered it to me. Say, yeah, Reed, he can go.
He can play. He's got some game.
If he stays up and they can protect him, that's a big if because that offensive line is solid. Not great. They have some holes in it, and we'll get to that in a second. You see a young man that's been around football all his life. And when you've been around football just like all your kids, you operate this game at your speed because you've been there before. I learned that my rookie year being around Terrence Holt, older brother Torrey. taught him everything. Terrence is in there. He's the first one in, rolling out his leg, hitting the sauna, hydrating, getting on the treadmill, warming up, while the rest of us are just looking at him trying to figure out what are we supposed to do. But when you watch Raiola's game, you see him playing at a pace that is slowed down, controlled, relaxed. For a freshman, that's scary for everybody else. You don't see him being rushed. He throws from different arm angles. He'll roll. He'll use his eyes to manipulate the coverage. He has the ability to throw every single pass. The one ball out there fast. The two ball over top of the second level defender. And when he gets ready to let this rocket loose, yeah, coach, he can put it from the 50 to the back of the end zone in any spot that he wants to.
Now, let's go to coaching matchup, Smoke, because right now, I think this is another battle of the trenches. They got a battle down here. So the Nebraska offensive line versus Colorado's defensive line. Who you give the edge in the matchup to?
I'm going to give the edge to Colorado's defensive line. Just for the simple fact that when you cut on that Nebraska tape, you saw the edges, the left tackle and the right tackle. They gave up a lot around the edge. And last week, I know everybody said they were on the Colorado's defensive line, that they didn't play well, and here we go again, and can Coach Prime fix it? They went in the portal and got it. Those are Monday morning quarterbacks that were watching everything on YouTube or maybe watching some type of highlights. But when you broke the game down, you saw Warren Sapp and D. Lou's defensive line hunting, relentless, stout at the point, creating pressure. Now, sometimes creating pressure is better than getting sacks, because creating pressure now puts that note in the back of your head. And now you start playing fast. And when you start playing fast, there's a guy back there named Travis Hunter that if you put it anywhere close to him, you're going to have interceptions.
So let me ask you this, Smoke. Dylan Raiola's uncle, Donovan, is the O-line coach. So you considering family affair, he's got to protect his son. What type of impact do you think that Warren Sapp and Damian Lewis, though, can have on the defensive line for Colorado as positional coaches? Have they changed the attitude? They changed the mentality here?
Coach, 1,000%. Even to the point that we listened to a clip that Warren is still out for revenge for what happened to him back then when he played in Nebraska. Nebraska won the national championship. But obviously, when you cut on the tape, Reed, you see a different brand of football that they're playing up front in Colorado. Those guys are rolling off the ball, playing to the echo of the whistle. Why? Because that's the standard that's set by both of their defensive line coaches. Mm-hmm. That's the expectation. In drills, we even saw a drill that was going viral of one of the defensive linemen taking out Coach Sapp just because of the attitude that he creates. And Coach Sapp wasn't upset. That's what he wants. He wants those guys so hungry, playing on that edge, close enough not to get penalties, because we knew they had some bad penalties by Shiloh, but close enough to that edge that you don't go over, but you create fear and doubt into your opponent.
So let's talk about same as last game, a couple of recruits that are on impact the game. You got Colorado recruit Chauncey Gooden. What do you see at him when you look at him on tape?
Well, Reed, here's what you try to do all the time. You try to throw Colorado on me with the expectation that you're trying to pretend like you aren't Mr. Colorado. Go ahead and touch on Mr. Chauncey.
Well, what it does is it continues to give them the offensive line that they want when you add a guy with this size, with the amount of nimbleness he has. I like that fact that I feel like he moves great on his feet. One of the things that he's going to have to continue to work on is his flexibility and his bend. I think that's something that big linemen struggle with in high school. I think they'll take care of that with coaching and developing it at the next level. But he punches tremendously well. He moves well, especially in pass protection. This is a really good pickup for them. For people who say that they don't recruit high school kids, they still are trying to build the offensive line through getting some key high school players.
What about for Nebraska? Give us one.
Well, this was no shocker to me. Isaiah Mosey, Kansas City, Missouri kid,
Shocker.
was committed to the University of Oregon. A lot of people don't know Dan Lanning's from Kansas City, so he has a pretty good hold on that area down there. But his father, a legendary high school coach at Lee Summit North in the Kansas City area has had big-time players. Williams Nemeri came out of that program. That was the #1 D lineman in our rankings last year. Isaiah Mosey is the real deal at wide receiver. His dad has been hired as an assistant coach at the University of Nebraska. So it was no doubt to me that when I saw that happen and I talked to his dad, that he was going to move over and play at the University of Nebraska. There's no business like family business. Smoke, this is our flag on the play segment where we normally throw flags on the play that don't sit right with us. I want to talk briefly here for a second. A very close friend of mine, high school teammate, all-around great guy, Nick Taylor, passed away suddenly yesterday. He was a major asset to the community in terms of his fellowship, in terms of his friendship, and in terms of his community service. It's been devastating to the entire city of St. Louis. And when you think about a lot of the violence that we have week after week with kids, we had a high school game last week where a lot of guys were fighting, a lot of kids were fighting. Nick Taylor is the kind of guy that injects positivity into the community. So my hope would be that when people are honoring his legacy and the things that he's done for the community, young people can see that it's okay to communicate properly. It's okay to communicate effectively. It's okay to have proper conflict resolution because Nick was always a part of the solution, Smoke.
Well said.
You can check us out every Tuesday and Thursday on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Central. I am Carl Reed. This is Smoke Dixon, and you
Been Unfiltered.